Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. It's getting colder, isn't it? Let's be honest here. I mean, we're almost in October, so I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. But, well, it's 26th, isn't it? So we've got another over half a week to go till October. But I'm trying to avoid putting the heating on. Hence the reason I'm a little bit more dressed up now. It'll be the old big dressing gown out soon. Anyway, enough of that. When I did a video this morning about how Warren or rather Eubank and Warren had sort of apologised to each other and kissed and made up, and suddenly they're, it's all forgotten. I'm talking about the accusations that were laid at Warren and the other promoters yesterday by Eubank, and immediately people are saying, you know what that is, don't you? That's Turkey al-Sheikh. He's saying, behave yourselves, boys, behave yourselves. We're not going to have any of this nonsense. No, we're not. We're going to concentrate on the boxing and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people were saying, that's good. That's a good thing. Yeah, it is a good thing. It is a good thing. But here's the other thing, because I do like to play devil's advocate. I really do. Look, do you really want someone who has a sort of iron fist around the neck of British promoters to the point where he is saying, you will behave this way? I say jump, you say how high, all right? Now, of course, again, I repeat, as I've said in previous videos, yes, it's great we're getting all these gigs. Yes, it's great that suddenly these fights that would not normally be made are being made. I get it. I understand all that stuff, all right? But this is kind of picks up on, and God knows I don't want to agree with Simon Jordan, but that article he did in the, was it the Mail? I don't read any of those. I don't read the Rothermere Press. I don't read the Murdoch Press. I don't read any of that shite. But he did an article, apparently. I read little snippets, excerpts from it about how he's saying that basically Hearn and Warren have, shelved their morals and everything, and suddenly they're in bed with each other, and suddenly they're basically the sort of minions of the excellent Turkey. And I don't think you can dismiss that argument, okay? Because Warren and Hearn used to be autonomous, all right? Any big shows that were put on, any shows at all actually, but certainly any big stadium shows, so this would be Joshua's stint as a stadium staple, this would be Groves versus Froch, the second one, this would be anything that Frank's done in the past. He's put stadium fights on, he's gone over to America, and we all remember Hamed, or if you're of a certain age you remember Hamed versus Kevin Kelly, and all this stuff, he's done co-promotions, has been done with him as his own boss. Okay, this is the point that people seem to be missing. These promoters have done things as their own boss. They're now behaving as if they are not their own bosses, and you know what? In a sense, they're not, because Turkey has come along waving this enormous wad of cash around, slapped them both round the face. Suddenly, from being sworn enemies who, you wouldn't have put any money on them working together, suddenly they're doing all sorts of cross promotions, which is a good thing. But again, will it last? And more to the point, do you really want to be somebody's bitch? Do you know what I mean? Do you really want to be that? Do you want to be someone's stooge? Do you want to be beholden to someone? See, Frank Warren's in his 70s, okay? He started from the grassroots up. He was involved in, they now call it white collar. They used to call it illegal, behind closed doors. Unlicensed boxing was the term back in the day. And he went on and on and on, up and up and up to be one of the greatest British promoters of all time, certainly. You could argue he's the greatest British promoter of all time. But with a few exceptions, because he was, for a while he worked with Don King, who eventually sued him and won successfully. He's been his own man. Now, Eddie Hearn, he had his father's checkbook, and for a long while he had Sky's money, and now he's got DAZN's money. So yes, when it comes to broadcasters, you have a contract and you have to abide by it. But at the same time, you've negotiated some sort of, if you've got any sense, and I imagine these guys have, because they're both very good businessmen, you've negotiated some wiggle room. You're not entirely beholden to someone because you've been essentially bought out, all right? So when Warren or Hearn or anyone else says, look at this, the Riyadh season. They brought this fantastic, event to Wembley Stadium. Yeah, they did. They did. That's not the argument, right? The argument is, the cautious argument is, yes, but it wasn't done with British money. In other words, it wasn't done with autonomous promoters doing things their way. It's not as if Warren and Hearn came together to put this blockbuster on using their own money, which they could have done. They could have done that. They had the resources to do that. Maybe the fighters wouldn't have got the same amounts of money. Maybe not every fight could on that card. They could have been paid that whatever it was they got, without a shadow of a doubt. Turki Al Sheikh, his money, definitely it helps. It helps, but they could have done. They could have sorted something out. They could have been cross promoting years ago, but they behaved like a couple of petulant school kids, and this is my side of the desk and that's your side of the desk, and don't you dare put your elbows on my side and all that sort of bollocks. Turkey came along and gave him a slap, which is a good thing, but it's not a good thing long term. I made a video previously emphasising this phrase, long term. If Turkey, who is from Saudi Arabia, has not in any shape or form British, I think we can say, very much of a different culture, it's not good if he becomes the puppet master and Warren, Hearn and everyone else are just little marionettes singing whatever dance he wants them to dance. That's a bad thing. Why can people not see this? Understand? So I accept that in modern society, it was 44 years ago, 45 years ago when Britain began its change from being a manufacturing nation to being a service economy. My grandparents, if they were alive, they would be 109, 110, whatever it would be. When I was a kid, I lived with my grandparents. If I went in my grandfather's garage, the car was made in Britain. My grandfather was a carpenter. All his tools were made in Britain. If I went into the living room, the telly was made in Britain. If I went into my nan's kitchen, the Formica table was made in Britain. Eventually, she got her first washing machine when I was quite a bit older, 5 years later. I remember. I think I must have been about 11. That was made in Britain. Nowadays, we make fuck all. We're just a marketplace for every other foreign investor to come in and sell their wares, all right? And we don't really negotiate anything. Other than maybe, just maybe, these big corporations, international corporations, might pay a little bit of tax just so that a little bit can go back into our economy, instead of them siphoning it off to the fucking Cayman Islands or Ireland or wherever the fuck else. We've got to the point now where Britain, let's look at football teams, all right? When I was a kid, Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, both of the Manchester teams actually, and all the others were all owned by British families. They had boards of directors, they were all British. Nowadays, they're all owned by foreigners. City, it's all Arab money. Liverpool, was it American money? Manchester United, American money. There's all sorts of people involved. So we've now got to that point where Britain is just a marketplace, and all the foreigners come in and put their money in. All the manufacturing industries were sold off. They were privatised, which is basically another word for abolished, and they were sold to usually the shares were sold predominantly to foreign investors. You go to London, where I'm from. You've got rows and rows of empty flats, all bought by foreigners because they're basically little money boxes. They buy them, they go up in price, in worth. So it's kind of like you're making money without doing anything with them. Meanwhile, you've got British people sleeping on the street, We've got to that point in society. All right. Do you really want boxing to become like that, where it's essentially owned, run by a foreign entity, a very different culture to ours? And again, I'm going to mention it: sports washing, human rights record, etc. Do you really want to be dictated to by that type of culture? All right. And I know what people are going to say. Well, the West has plenty of blood in its hands. Oh, yes, it does. I know that. Yes, I agree with you. But how about we put our own house in order rather than rely on foreign money to be invested into a sport that we love? You know, we don't want to get to the point where, just like in football, the absolute top echelon is owned by foreign interests. Whereas, the non-league teams, yeah, okay, they're owned by maybe the community still. You don't want to get it to the point where boxing, the top fighters are all owned, the top promotions are all run by foreigners. The small all stuff, they get paltry money. But yeah, still a few British small hall promoters floating around, but they're not really making any money. They're not really doing anything. They've got no power. They're not really. We want British promoters, just like we want British fighters doing well. And I speak as someone who's been extremely critical and is extremely critical of the likes of Hearn and Warren. These are not people I would trust. But you know what? Even they are preferable to just selling the family silver over and becoming a sort of a butler in your own house for Saudi royalty. Not specifically Saudi royalty. I mean, it could be the Americans, it could be the Chinese, it could be anyone. Don't we want to have to retain some of our culture, And I'm not talking ethnicity here. Ethnicity is about as relevant as somebody's shoe size. I'm talking about British, homegrown, based at home. Don't we want that? I personally do. Anyway, comments below if you've got any. And yeah, subscribe, like, do all that good stuff. Later.